What's up, y'all, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Trainer podcast. I'm your host, Gina, aka Gina Marie Fit, and it is episode 40. If you can believe it, next week will be 1 year ago that I launched the Unfiltered Trainer. The whole point and mission of this podcast was to create a safe space that people could speak on their truths, could request topics that might be taboo, and really just say what needs to be said without feeling like you have to filter your feelings or hold back. And I'm pretty sure we accomplished that in the first year. It truly is just an incredible feat to still be recording a year later. The metrics on podcasts that don't make it through their first year is really disheartening, to say the least. And it's sad that not everybody is able to pursue their goals and their dreams and the things that really just set their soul on fire at the end of the day. So I just want to say first, thank you for still being here, for still listening to everything that I have to say, and just being a part of the process, because nothing is perfect and it's all about progress. And so today's episode is called Quality Over Quantity, Redefining Friendship in the Modern Age. And what really just kind of like triggered the need for this episode is several conversations I've had with people over the last couple months, just talking about life and the progression that we go through as we get older, and just how things ebb and flow and sometimes are no more. And as I am coming up on yet another birthday, these last couple birthdays have been really wild. So if you don't know this, if you follow me on social media, you saw it. An article is being written about myself and my brand and my business. And part of that is that I had to provide them like 4 to 8 photos that really are synonymous with what the article is being written about. And it made me go on a journey. And in some way, I think I needed that journey, because as I scrolled through my phone, I was able to scroll through 3.5 years of photos of my time in Tampa and also my travels while being a resident in Tampa. And it made me realize, one, just how many incredible people I've met along the way, whether they're actively in my life, no longer in my life, or maybe just a memory of years past. I really felt blessed and just full of gratitude for every single person I've come in contact with over the last 3.5 years. And then in those photos was the last couple birthdays. And I don't know what about it, seeing those photos excited me, but also hurt my heart so much, was just seeing how much life has evolved and changed. And so a couple years ago, we did a whole birthday. We all got dressed up. We were at one of my favorite venues, which is Armature Works. We were upstairs at a club called M-Bird. I use that like very loosely, just like a space where you can get drinks and listen to music. And I saw this huge group of people, and I just think how much we have all endured since that photo. Some people are no longer even in Tampa. Some people are no longer friends. Some people have changed jobs, careers, relationships. It was really wild to see like the OG group, my original Tampa group, how much has changed for all of us. And then last year, I saw my birthday photo, and we did a very just chill game night, PJ night, which ended up being such a hit. But it was all of the people that were in my life who were supporting me as I was actively recovering from this TBI. And it just really kind of made me think about what last year was like for me. And then I ran into somebody who I haven't seen since the accident. And it was something they said to me that really sat with me for the rest of the day. They said that they had no clue just how bad my accident and my TBI were. And it was just simply the way they said, yeah, Gina, we had no idea just how much you were going through. And that is kind of how this episode developed. I have had my fair share of loss since moving to Tampa, change. I myself have had to go through one of the most introspective, transformative paths, to say the least, of really having to look at myself and really having to sit with myself, decisions I've made, things I have said, choices along the way, whether good or bad. And I feel like, if anything, that birthday photo and the one that is coming, again, are going to look vastly different. Some people will remain, while others are no longer with us. And it just continues to remind me about the topic of today's episode, that it's quality versus quantity. In modern day friendship, you really have to redefine what that means. Friendships nowadays, and it might just be because of my locale, are tricky. They're not always easy. They're not always convenient. They're not what you may have expected, and they probably don't look like they did a year ago. And part of that could lead to anger or frustration or resentment for a lot of people. But for me, instead of those choices and those feelings, I honestly just had this immense sense of gratitude that whether how short or long certain people were in my life who may no longer be in my life, or for the people that so amazingly continue to support me and lift me up and have been there for me, whether it's 5 or 50, it really has to come down to the quality of the interactions, the engagement. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 5 things that will help us redefine friendship in the modern age, which is topic number 1, and help us to understand, and for some of you, maybe even make peace like I needed to make with my soul about my time in Tampa and the progression of which my life has taken. So we're going to talk about 5 things that really will hopefully help you like they helped me. And as we come into the new year, really lay the foundation for which we would like to see our relationships and interactions transition. So when you're redefining friendship in a modern age, social media and digital connections really affect the expectations of friendships. There is a large difference between online acquaintances and deep in-person friendships, which seems like a no-brainer, but it's actually not. There is pressure with many friends versus fostering meaningful connections. Everybody says to me, Gina, you have so many friends. And I've learned that I need to transition that statement to, I have a lot of acquaintances and a solid group of good friends. I know a lot of people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're reciprocal relationships, supportive, and empowering. So when you're thinking about redefining friendship in modern day age, and social media is a factor, we have to remember to be intentional with our face-to-face time. Something that I am doing a better job at, but in the works of, is turning my phone over. That way I can't see notifications, messages. There's nothing but me in that moment with that person, trying to be present, unless I'm taking a food pic, because you guys know how much I love food pictures if you follow me. But it's true. To be intentional, you have to be present. And to be present, you can't be distracted. Second thing to look for when you're trying to redefine friendship in the modern age with social media is the social quality versus quantity aspect in terms of followers. This is something I encouraged a year ago, and something I've done myself is to unfollow, mute. That way, those who may trigger you, who do not support you, who may speak on your name, aren't a factor. Something that's really refreshing for me as I've gone through my own introspective healing journey and taken accountability for things I don't necessarily like to think about but need to in order to being able to make progress and heal and be a better person, is that when I unfollowed people because I felt pressure to keep following them but mute them, when I truly unfollowed people, I didn't think about them. Because in the back of my head, there was no strings still attached. When you mute people, you're still attached to them. But when I unfollowed people, you would be surprised that you don't even think about them. And that is why it's so important for number 3 to communicate the vulnerability and clarity by expressing your feelings clearly with those who are in your inner circle and who you can trust. Social media provides a great resource for small businesses like myself. It creates a platform, it creates a community. But because of those of us who are on social media, you also are judged. There are a lot of opinions and things said about you. Doesn't matter if they're true, because if that person that's being told that story about you doesn't ask your side of it, they've already created a falsified narrative that you cannot undo. All you can do is continue to move forward and focus on those who are in your life, supportive of who you are, and that you reciprocate that energy so that you will be able to understand and know who is in your corner and whose corner you're in. Which leads us to number 2. As grown adults, it is important to have emotional availability for those in our life, which is why quality versus quantity is such an important topic. Because if you have a large group of people with limited connections, you're not able to have the importance of emotional availability. You have to be emotionally present with those who are in your life. It's a difference between surface level relationships and truly supportive, engaging relationships. This creates empathetic connections. You don't have to understand something that somebody's going through. You just have to be supportive of what they're going through. And this is how you cultivate space for vulnerability. A couple weeks ago, I had one of the best sit-down meals I've had in a long time with 2 of the most wonderful people in my life in Tampa. And we had some difficult conversations. And part of it, I was in tears because for me, it's really hard to hear that I am judged by people still who are no longer in my life. And just to know that there are people out there speaking ill on my name, and they're not even people that are a factor in mine because, again, I've removed them. I've healed, I've forgiven, I've taken accountability for myself and my own actions. Closure, as we've talked about in a previous episode, does not always happen in person. Sometimes you have to take the steps to heal, to hold yourself accountable so that you can heal. So you are able to cultivate space to be vulnerable. And it's an incredibly beautiful space that you can create when you have quality versus quantity relationships, because you're able to freely have those emotions without shame and know those people are holding a space for your heart. Number 3, something that's been super important and I have been practicing without verbally expressing, is setting boundaries for healthy friendships. This year, my focus had to be on healing from a really involved accident with a lot of complications along the way. And because of that, I've really had to limit my social time. Doctor ordered in the beginning, I couldn't even go to a restaurant. And so it was really interesting to see who showed up for me in the ways that I needed and in the ways I could show up for them in my limited capacity for months on end. This role of setting boundaries really emphasizes the quality over quantity because it teaches you how to say no, because that's a full sentence in itself, so that you can prioritize your own energy, which will help you learn to communicate your expectations. Something that I'm learning the hard way. I know I can't expect me from other people. And I jokingly say to those in my life, I wouldn't expect me from other people because sometimes I feel like a whole psychopath with how much I'm doing, in the sense that I don't know how to stop because I'm constantly filling voids of things that are supposed to be in my life at this age that are not. And so I go, 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 and I do the absolute most because that is the only way I can live with myself and the life that I have, and just how vastly different my life looks for somebody my age compared to literally 90% of the people around me. And so in order to be able to feel whole in this version of what my life is, I really do have to do all of these things because it's the only thing I can do to live with myself. And so in order to set boundaries for healthy friendships, one of the most important things is just creating a system that works for you of regular check-ins with close friends. Something I've been trying to do because my memory is like non-existent still a year later is anytime I think of somebody or something, I shoot a text or send a silly video or a photo, and just like a hello, nothing important, just like, hey, how you doing? How's your day going? Because with my brain since the accident, if I don't do it in the moment that I'm doing it, it's game over. I won't remember in 2 minutes. And so I've started doing that anytime I am thinking about somebody or something pops up or a memory, which is why I was so triggered by those photos, because I have been debating. There's a few people in those photos who aren't in my life anymore. And I've made peace with that, but I still have so much love for those people. And I've been debating sending them a message, just congratulating them on like current endeavors, their growth, things they're doing. And I haven't yet because I'm so afraid of how it will be received. But in my heart of hearts, I still have love for those people. And I want to congratulate them, not because I think my opinion matters, but just because I have space in my heart for them. And so the second thing that you can do in cultivating and setting boundaries is to practice a system of active listening and empathy. So when your friends are speaking to you or speaking about something, it is very important to have minimal distractions so that you can validate their feelings and listen to what they're saying. Sometimes, myself included, because people have said to me, I don't know what to say to you. And in this thing about especially loss and the amount of grief I've endured and now this insanity of my last year, we don't always need something said. Sometimes we just need somebody to listen and validate that we're heard, because I too know that there is no answer for what has happened. There's no one line that's going to heal or solve anything we've been through. Sometimes we just need somebody to actively listen, which takes us into the third thing for setting boundaries for healthy friendships, is that the most important thing you could do is just to have honest emotional conversations and express those feelings and communicate. That really will set the tone for your friendship, and the fact that you will know who you can trust and hold space for, because not everybody's going to be the type of friendship that it feels like family. There are those surface level friends that you might have for business ventures, for going to clubs, for going to shows. Not everybody is going to have this deep-seated, rooted connection in every single type of friendship you have. Sometimes you're friends for seasons or reasons and not for life, and that's okay. Number 4, when redefining friendships in modern age, quality time versus quantity time is something that I am learning myself. So over the last year, I have spent a lot of time alone. At first, I was really sad because I'm laughing because it's not funny, but it is funny to me because I was so sad in the beginning, but it was everything I needed, because I was distracting myself because I didn't want to deal with myself. And so by keeping myself busy and doing all the things I was doing last year, I just wasn't ready to deal with what I needed to deal with and to force myself to address some things that I didn't quite love about myself. And so quality time versus quantity time means that sometimes you're going to be sitting down to a meal by yourself, taking a walk by yourself, going to a workout by yourself. That's something I've been doing the last 3 weeks. Is I'm slowly allowed to increase my activity. I can't do HIIT or jumping or anything crazy, but I can do more endurance training like Pilates on the reformer. And every week I've been going to these classes alone. This is something I would not have done a year ago. I would have waited for somebody to go with me or gone at a time that worked for everybody else. But that's where the quality aspect comes into play. When you frequently see people, you don't necessarily have meaningful time that's focused. You might just be doing quick activities just to have the company. But I've learned that as I've endured this over the last year, less frequent, more intentional hangouts are so much more meaningful and enjoyable. And you have things to talk about and you're able to be more present versus always being in a rush. And so something I've learned to value is solo time. And it's become so valuable because it prevents you from overextending yourself. And you can mark this day on the calendar that you are listening to this podcast, but I have learned that I do overextend myself because in my heart of hearts, the thing that gives me life and values my existence, and in my head somehow justifies that I don't allow my mental health to dictate my choices anymore, is I take care of people. That's all I know how to do. That's what I'm good at doing. That is who I am. Any way I can help, do something, alleviate stress for somebody, anything, that is who I am in my heart of hearts. The person I am, the person I've always been, is the person that takes care of everybody else. And that has been extremely hard for me. Not because I expect me from other people, but it's been so hard for me this last year as I've been working to obtain closure, is that I also was forced to think about going through those photos. All of the times I did things for people because that's just who I was and wanted to do, and those people never reciprocated a tenth of that energy towards me. And it's hard because some of those people that I did the most for are those that still to this day just denounce who I am and my name. And it's hard because it is my heart that defines who I am and the quality of person I am and the type of friend that I am. I truly will do for those I love anything possible. Whatever that person needs in that time of day, I have always and will always be that person. And it's easy to allow the things we experience to negatively affect that. But something I've chosen to do, instead of look back and feel disappointed, is just be glad I was who I was in those moments. And I will continue to be that person regardless of who reciprocates that energy. Because at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves, our choices, and who we are. I have to answer to who I was as a person one day, and that is what gives me so much closure and comfort, is just knowing that I did what I thought was best in that moment, regardless of what was the energy or the reciprocation or the backlash after. I'm good with who I was in those moments. And so when you're trying to dictate and define quality time over quantity time, maybe this is your opportunity to ask open-ended questions. Get to know these people better. Ask them things that you haven't had the opportunity to do for because you're in large groups or you're seeing each other so often that you don't have anything to talk about. Number 2 is that you don't rush them. That is something I'm not good at, and I think it's because I'm a Sagittarius, is that I get so excited to respond that I speak over people. And something that we all could do better is to not rush the response and just listen. Which will lead us to number 3, which is enables you to prioritize who is most important. Really, if you take the time to sit back, those who are always there for you, supportive of you, regardless of their locale, that's who you should be spending your quality time with. it's easy to spend time with large groups, those who are fun, the life of the party. But when I really sat down and thought about my last year and these last 2 birthdays, it's the people that are going to be in this year's photo for me in Tampa that really helped me to understand the direction my life needed to go. And it really shows who prioritizes who's important. And it's unfortunate that I don't get to be home with my friends who I just love so much. And so many of my friends who live in different parts of different states who have been like literally just the rock that have held me together this year. But in terms of speaking about prioritizing those in my current locale of where I am at, it's really refreshing, and it can be a little difficult, not going to lie, when you really find those who are willing to spend quality versus quantity time with you, just how short the list might be of who is a priority to you that reciprocates that same energy. Last thing we're going to talk about in this episode is letting go of toxic one-sided friendships. Yes, this might just be the biggest hurdle and the hardest thing for us to overcome, but it's time to recognize when it's no longer serving you and when it's emotionally draining to you. That one's tough, and you might be thinking about somebody in particular who, when you are out and about with them, just how emotionally draining they are. They always have drama. They're always talking about people. They always have something negative to say about somebody. The most beautiful thing you can do for the both of you is let go gracefully. There doesn't have to be some intense conversation, some dramatic ending. Just let go gracefully. And you'll be shocked when you do how little that person will reach out to you. Because you will realize, like I have realized myself this year, that I was the one constantly creating the events, creating the conversations. As much as I love event planning and doing things that are fun like that, and I'm great at them, when it comes to friendships, they can't be one-sided. One of the best things that you can do, and I've done over the last year, is foster friendships that align with goals and values. It's so refreshing to sit down at a meal or a brunch and be able to have valuable conversations. Emotional freedom is so empowering when you're finally able to let go and say goodbye of those relationships that no longer serve you. And you'll realize that because as you're sitting down with those who are in your core group, and you freely can speak on topics or talk about your past or things you've been through, or maybe things you're privately going through, and just know that they've got you and you're good, you'll notice the vast difference between those who are there for you and those who are there for themselves. And you'll notice this by 3 things. You'll acknowledge and accept feelings, because you'll be able to identify the imbalances. Those imbalances are critical for you to determine the quality over the quantity in your friends. Second things is when we talked about when you set those boundaries and you limit that contact and you see the decrease in communication, it will only further solidify your need to limit social interactions with those particular individuals. And lastly, one of the best things you'll be able to do is release the guilt and focus on self-care. Practice self-compassion, remind yourself of your worth, and then create the space for the new connections that are coming and create space for the valuable connections you want to foster. Redefining friendship in the modern age isn't easy, especially because my age group's life looks vastly different than the prior 2 generations before us. Because of that, it can be really difficult if you're on one path and your friend is on the other. That's what I thought. But when I took time to really reevaluate who was most important, who was investing in me, even though the majority of those valuable people, especially my friends back home, have kids, they're married, they're in relationships. My core group of people, we are all at a different phase of life, but it doesn't matter, nor does it affect our friendships. That's because I have learned who is worth investing my time in and who invests their time in me. And even though we are all on a different path, it works. And that's the beautiful reality of what happens when you are able to determine who is a friend or an acquaintance or a foe. And then you're able to have that ability to be emotionally vulnerable to them and emotionally available for them. It's really crazy when you really sit back and think about your life and you take ownership for the things you've done or said, work to heal from them so that that toxic part of your personality, just like mine, doesn't have to be as present in the present. It's really incredible just how enlightening it'll be, and it might just set you up for your next destined path as it did for me, because part of this podcast journey has been honestly an open healing journey, because I'm not just speaking about people or to people, I'm also speaking on the person I was a year ago, and we're speaking on the person I would like to become. As we wrap up today's episode, it's clear that friendship in the modern age is less about counting the number of people in our lives and more about the depth of the connection we share. In a world that often values speed, convenience, and surface-level interactions, it's crucial to remember that true friendship isn't defined by how many people we know, but by how deeply we connect with those we choose to let in. Let's prioritize authenticity, vulnerability, and mutual support. Because in the end, the quality of our relationship shapes the quality of our lives. So take a moment to appreciate the friends who truly understand you, who lift you up, and who make you feel seen. After all, real friendship isn't about being everywhere. It's about being present where it matters most. All right, y'all, stay tuned, and I will see you next week for Volume 2 of the birthday episode, which ended up being the most impactful episode that started this entire journey. See you soon.